In this video, we're going to discuss Python PickleModule. So, databases, it has their keys and values. They can be stored as strings or bytes. Oftentimes, you need to create a database that is not limited to strings or bytes. Python has a built-in module called pickle, referred to as pickling, that has a more robust database structure that allows you to save a multitude of different objects. Booleans, integers, floating points, strings, bytes, objects, none, lists, dictionaries, you name it. That's pretty good at holding it. A couple things. It's Python specific. It's also part of the standard library. So awesome. It's available. It serializes your data and structures it so it could be called really quickly, and that's done by the pickling protocol. So without further ado, let's jump into this. So before we use pickle, we have to do just that, import it, right? So import pickle, it's there. If we do a dir on pickle, you'll see there's all kinds of fun things that you could leverage and read about in more advanced sections of pickling. But for now, we import it. It's good to go. We're going to create a quick list. We'll call T. We'll just stick with the program here. We'll say 1, 2, 3. Hit enter. Syntax error. What did I do wrong? I put a space, right? T equals 1, 2, 3. So we built our list, and now we're going to dump the list into the pickle protocol. So we call on pickle, we call on dumps, and then we call on our list and hit enter. And now we get this strange syntax back. Well, the result is your serialized data into the pickle algorithm or protocol. Super cool, right? Let's clear this out. Let's open up another shell. And now we're going to go ahead and re-import pickle, create a more complex list. We're going to output it to a data file, call it .data, and then we're going to open a file to create it, shop list file in the write B, right? So that's, I believe, write bytes. And then we're going to call on pickle. We're going to dump, which basically means take an object and write it to the pickling algorithm. Call on pickle, call on dump, call on our list, and then write it to fout, which is our data file. All right, and then we're going to close it. Right? It's extremely important that we close it, much like any other file. So let's do this whole thing. Import pickle. Import pickle. I'm just cut and paste all this stuff over here. Do it one at a time. Here's our list. Got our list in there. Now this is the most important part. We're going to, well, all of it's important, but we're going to create the data file. We're going to create the variable to open that file. Now that file is available to Python to write to. And now we're going to call in the pickle module. We're going to dump our list into our open file. And then we're going to close it. Finish up with the close. Good to go. So, excellent. We took a list, created a file, took that list, ran through the pickling protocol, wrote it to our file, and then we closed it. So, let's go back and read our data. Here. File in, fn, open the file that we created, and read. So, now we're going to run this, which is stored list, pickle load. Now we're going to load the data from the file into a variable called stored list. And then we're going to call on stored list, and we receive our list back. Now, keep in mind that if we did a type on stored list, it is the list. We receive our list back. Now, the data itself, since it was serialized through a protocol and then deserialized to access it, it's not different data per se. It's not changed in the form that it's the same list, but it was augmented. It was leveraged by the pickling algorithm. So keep that in mind. And pickle's first in, first out, FIFO. Let's take a look at a more complex pickle, right? I'll close this, reopen just to clear it. Reset. I could have just reset the shell, but you know. So now we're going to import pickle, dump a couple more lists into there, and then we're going to open a list dat file in write, and then we're going to dump our lists into that file, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to close it. And then down here, we're going to open that file in read mode. We're going to store pickle load fin, pickle load fin, pickle load fin. So it's going to take each item and store it in its own variable, and then we're going to print them out, and then we're going to close the file. And for this one, I'm just going to run it as a whole. So our first example, we went ahead and created an individual pickle file with one list. Here we're actually dumping a bunch of lists into one pickle file. And there we go, there's our printed back, right? Now, if we go and take a look at the file sizes on these files, let's see which one, shopping list. It's 1 kilobyte, very small, and that should be small. What's our next one? It's list data. 1 kilobyte as well for 3 small lists. So you don't really see the gain of this until you start working with a multitude of data and how the compression and the algorithm actually operates on that data, and you can scale your data. So if you take a couple gig text or a couple gig log file from a Windows box and strip pertinent data out of it into a pickle, it's the size of the individual data that you pulled and importing it into your pickled object will be way smaller than the original log. So keep that in mind as well. That's helpful. And that's it for pickle. So not only can you augment strings, integers, and all the Boolean objects, all these fun objects we've covered so far, you can now create complex data structures and databases itself, create them and recall data as well as augment.